Zurich, Switzerland, December 2019. Scientists Janif Ehrlich and Robert Grass announce an incredible technological breakthrough, one that takes the unassuming form of a small plastic bunny. This seemingly mundane object hides an incredible secret. Just like a living creature, the bunny has its own DNA. But how? By binding negatively charged molecules of biological DNA with positively charged particles of protective silica, Ehrlich and Grass were able to create the world's first synthetic DNA. While biological DNA is relatively fragile, this synthetic DNA can last potentially for eons. In the case of the bunny, the scientists encoded the digital files used to create the 3D printed object into the plastic. With even just a tiny snippet, they can decode the information inside and print a new copy of the bunny, which will carry the same synthetic DNA. What makes this breakthrough particularly significant is the fact that it has the ability to store massive amounts of data.
Digital computers that you have in your cell phone and everywhere in our world today deals with digital information, zeros and ones, zeros and ones. And that's how it makes calculations. Now, Mother Nature is more sophisticated. On a DNA molecule, Mother Nature computes in base 4, A, T, C, G, rather than 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. And we can actually compute by hijacking this base 4 mechanism that Mother Nature has created and putting our programming on ATCG, ATCG.
Experts say that once this technique is scaled up, massive amounts of data can be stored in any object, retrieved, and replicated, presumably forever.
These are great alternatives of storing data because they don't need any energy for storage. They can just sit on a shelf and not degrade.
Once you actually encode data into DNA, it's very cheap to replicate. So you can put petabytes of data into a droplet of DNA and then make 1 billion copies of it very inexpensively. And if you have a redundancy strategy, lots of copies is a good thing. DNA is also very compact. The amount of space it takes to store the Wikipedia is just a few drops of liquid. And those could actually just be embedded into fabric or paper and take up almost no space.
Although DNA data storage is still in its infancy, ancient astronaut theorists believe it presents an intriguing possibility. Is it possible that many out-of-place artifacts discovered around the world have much more to offer than what meets the eye? Might they contain information within them about whatever civilization left them behind?
There are lots of natural materials that conduct and can contain information today. Crystals, various types of stones, even living organisms. So is it possible that extraterrestrials have embedded ancient sacred knowledge, some type of material that if we were able to extract this information, there could be a wealth of information ready, waiting at our fingertips?
Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that by examining out-of-place artifacts, we might discover clues as to what information is contained within them and how to access it. As support for this notion, they point to the artifacts that humanity recently sent to the moon. When the Arch Mission Foundation created the Lunar Library, they included analog layers that could be read without a computer.
The idea of the Lunar Library was to make it something which recipients who find it in millions to billions of years could see that it has data on it, and the analog layers teach everything you need to know to build a computer and get the digital information off the deeper layers. By trying to store information for thousands or millions of years, you end up going to the same solutions that the hypothetical ancient aliens may have also figured out how to use.
So we have to ask ourselves if these artifacts didn't perhaps have a technological purpose that we still do not understand.
Alatri, Italy. June 2019. Ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio Tsoukalos is in the heart of the Italian peninsula, about 50 miles southeast of Rome. He is here to investigate the astronomical alignment of the finest megalithic construction in Italy, the city's Acropolis.
All right. Giulio.
Hello, Giorgio. How are you?
Good to see you again.
Yeah,
How
nice
are you?
to see you again.
What a fantastic place.
Welcome to the Alatri Acropolis,
I
Italy.
cannot wait
Yeah.
to see all of this.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for years to see this. Amazing.
For expert insight, he has enlisted the help of Dr. Giulio Magli, a professor of archaeoastronomy from the Polytechnic University in Milan, Italy. Dr. Magli has spent years studying this massive structure.
This is incredible.
Yes, we are going to the main entrance of the Acropolis of Alatri, which is covered by the hugest, most massive stone ever put in place in Italy. The lintel of the Porta Maggiore in Alatri is about 26 stones.
26 tons. I mean, this is absolutely insane.
So they were motivated to do all of this. So the motivation must be also symbolic. It cannot be only, okay, let's make a wall, because otherwise I will make a wall with horizontal layers and small stones.
So you're suggesting that they had to have had a compelling reason to do this, because nobody in their right mind would do something like this without a reason.
Yes.
The imposing megalithic citadel was built on top of a hill and is defined by 6 huge walls. The shape of the Acropolis, when viewed from the sky, has led some to suggest that it was built to create a lasting commemoration of the site's connection to the stars. Giorgio has brought a drone with him to get an aerial view of the ancient Acropolis.
All right, let's launch this rocket.
Yes.
All right, so what do we see here?
Yes, you see, the Acropolis has a very regular shape. It is a polygon very similar to the polygons of the walls.
Okay.
And this very regular shape has nothing to do with the morphology of the hill, because, you know, a hill can be random.
Right.
But they wanted it exactly as it is.
So are you saying that this mount here was cut artificially?
Yes.
That is incredible.
So why? They wanted such a strange shape. There is a theory, which might be sound, that they wanted the Acropolis to have the shape of a constellation. And the edges of the Acropolis correspond to the brightest stars of the constellation Gemini.
So we are looking at the outline of Gemini here.
It may well be.
Wow.
It may well be.
What's really interesting here is that the entire mountaintop has been artificially shaped so that it is in the shape of the constellation of Gemini. And then you have to wonder, why was it built in this shape? Because something of significance happened here a long time ago.
In Greek mythology, the Gemini constellation depicts twin brothers, Castor and Pollux, the offspring of a god and a human.
In the story, we're told that Zeus shapeshifted or disguised himself as a swan and impregnated this human female, Leda, leading to the birth of Castor and Pollux.
While mainstream historians consider the story purely mythological, ancient astronaut theorists point out that these gods were considered very real by the Greek people of the time. And they propose that the story of the twins could be an account of an extraterrestrial encounter.
In one version of the story, we're told that the egg containing Castor and Pollux came down out of the heavens.
When the legends say that the Gemini twins were born of an egg that descended from the sky, it actually says that they were born of a so-called cosmic egg. And what are these cosmic eggs? They're always described as having either a silver or a bronze-colored shell. And sometimes they're also described as having a lot of smoke, fire, and noise.
And interestingly, many UFOs are sometimes seen as eggs. So is it possible that the egg of Castor and Pollux is some extraterrestrial vehicle that looks like an egg and lands on Earth, and then two twins step out? That's quite possible.
If the Alatri Acropolis was purposely built to resemble the Gemini constellation, could it be commemorating an alien visitation? And considering the incredible size of the stones it was built with, is it possible that the extraterrestrials themselves had a hand in the wall's construction?
Do we have any records, written records at all about this place from ancient times?
We don't. Even the Roman historian of architecture, Vitruvius, does not speak about this technique
Okay.
at all.
What is your speculation how old this place really could be?
Okay, standard archaeology claims that this was made by the Romans, but Romans' techniques were, of course, very good, but based on horizontal planes and relatively small stones. So it is very difficult to believe that this was made by the Romans. It must be older.
Because you can clearly see the different construction styles. Giulio, thank you very much for sharing this with me, and I can't wait till we see each other again.
New York City, located in Midtown Manhattan, is the busiest train station in the United States. Grand Central Terminal. 750,000 people come through here each day. And when they do, they pass under an enormous star chart, one whose origins date back some 5,000 years.
When commuters walk into Grand Central, they see an epic, magnificent mural of the Zodiac wheel. And it is one of the largest Zodiac murals in the modern world.
Although most visitors are not aware of the mural above their heads, if they were, they might be astounded, because as far as ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, it depicts the evolution of the Earth in extraterrestrial terms.
The most interesting fact about this portion of the Zodiac wheel is that it demonstrates what is called the precession of the equinoxes. What we call the spring equinox is the first day of spring. Back when the principles of astrology were first put together, the first day of spring was in Aries. During the Age of Christ, the first day of spring was in Pisces. The fish is associated with Pisces. Christ was considered the fisher of men. And nowadays, the spring equinox occurs when the sun rises in the constellation of Aquarius. That's why we are said to be in the Age of Aquarius, which is supposed to be an age of spiritual understanding, mystical awareness, and world peace.
While there is no consensus as to an exact date, many believe that the Age of Aquarius was set by ancient astrologers to begin in February 1962, and believed that it would trigger the rapid development of new technology. Ironically, it began just 7 years before man landed on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I guarantee you that when our ancestors spoke about these gods descending from the sky, they were not referring to the constellations themselves descending from the sky, but in my opinion, people coming from those areas up in the night sky.
As we are entering into the new Age of Aquarius, according to the Sumerians, it was Enki is the original man of Aquarius, an otherworldly, even extraterrestrial being. We are returning to a time when Enki himself may return. It's perfectly consistent with this idea that the Zodiac, in fact, is a sort of a clock that tells not just about the sun's journey, but also about the journey of extraterrestrials and their return to Earth.
We're now in the Age of Aquarius, and there is a quickening effect taking place with our technological advances. It's very possible that we are now in the age when we are going to reconnect with our ancient alien ancestors.
Could our ancestors have been aware of the Zodiac's powerful message thousands of years ago? And might the signs of the Zodiac provide the key to understanding both humanity's past and future?
There's a prophecy in the Glastonbury Zodiac relating to the coming Age of Aquarius. It's going to be a time where our minds begin to think radically differently in a way that can transform life on this planet for the better.
In many ways, we are becoming more enlightened. We are becoming more connected with the cosmos. We understand more about our roots and our origins.
Amboise, France, 1513. At Château de Clos-Lucé, a 61-year-old Leonardo da Vinci begins work on what will be his final painting. 3 years later, he completes his portrait of an androgynous figure emerging from a shadowy background, St. John the Baptist.
Picture this painting in a dimly lit chapel. Before lighting the candle, you don't see anything. Right. You light the candle, and the light of the flame illuminates the painting, and there emerges against a dark background St. John the Baptist.
And the pointing upward to heaven, saying, I'm from the light, I'm witnessing to the light. He's pointing to another realm.
Oh, yes. This is where the divine wisdom comes from. This is the source of everything. The first words of St. John are, I saw the light, I will come to this earth.
Wow.
Leonardo was encoding extraordinary secrets in his paintings. He wanted to imbue his work for the future generations with his own private message. His paintings are like portals to another world where the real Leonardo inhabits. But whether we're big enough to accept what he has to say is quite another matter.
Investigators have recently found some pretty astonishing things about Leonardo da Vinci's painting, John the Baptist. And they mirror the image to create a double image. And then through an enhancement process, they're able to bring out what seems to be the face of an extraterrestrial. It's a pretty unusual thing, and we know that Da Vinci did use this mirroring technique. And so this isn't something that is so far-fetched that he would do.
Da Vinci is one of a long line of artists who have told us, beginning with the ancient Egyptians and running through the early Christians and Tibetans, that art is a medium, it's a conduit through which ordinary people can connect with higher dimensional beings, even extraterrestrials.
Did Leonardo da Vinci experience an extraterrestrial encounter? One that opened his mind to what was once considered forbidden knowledge? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and believe that Da Vinci encoded his works in such a way that future generations could learn the truth about mankind's origins.
Throughout the ancient world, we can find mysterious structures, carvings, and symbols that defy explanation. For ancient astronaut theorists like me, these are signs that our ancestors were influenced by extraterrestrial visitors, and they represent a code left for future generations to decipher. One of my most favorite places to explore is India. Its mythology is chock full of stories of powerful gods who came from the sky and possessed astonishing technology, like flying craft called vimanas. And there is evidence that the secret to this technology has been encoded within complex geometric symbols that are said to have been designed by the gods.
More than 5,000 years ago, the Indus Valley civilization emerged in the Punjab region of modern-day India and Pakistan. Its people produced the foundational texts for Hinduism, which is widely regarded as the world's oldest religion, and today has more than 1 billion followers. The earliest of these texts, called the Vedas, describe how the gods provided humankind with a visual guide to sacred sounds. They are represented in elaborate patterns called mandalas.
The Vedas tell us that the gods taught humans how to chant, how to pray, and to sing in order to communicate with the gods.
Mandalas are mnemonic devices used to aid meditation, often in tandem with chanting. So what they're doing is they're essentially translating sound into visual patterns.
Mandalas are important components in both Hindu and Buddhist faiths. For ancient astronaut theorists, what is most intriguing about mandalas is that the visual patterns do, in fact, have a scientific connection to the sacred sounds they are said to represent. This was discovered thanks to an 18th century German physicist named Ernst Chladni, who is known as the father of acoustics. In 1787, Chladni's book, Discoveries in the Theory of Sound, revealed that the application of sound vibrations to grains of sand on a metal plate creates complex geometric shapes, now known as cymatic patterns.
We've got this thin metal plate, like a sounding board, and we've got a transducer attached to the bottom of it. And they spread sand over the top of this plate. And we start playing certain tones, and those sand particles start to bounce around and dance around, and they start to form these mathematical circular patterns. And as we move up through these frequencies, the sand goes into kind of a chaos in-between state, and then it arrives at this next pattern. And the higher the frequency you go, the more these patterns become more complex.
For Hindus and Buddhists, the most important sacred sound is Om. For centuries, this sound has been depicted in mandalas by a circle with a dot in the middle. Incredibly, the sound Om produces a cymatic pattern that perfectly matches this depiction. Other sounds also create patterns that are found in ancient mandalas.
Is it conceivable that the writers of the ancient Vedic texts were given advanced knowledge on how sound frequencies can be converted into visual patterns? Is it therefore possible that sound is an important means of communication with such higher intelligences?
Could mandalas contain an otherworldly message for humanity that is based on sacred sounds? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and suggest evidence can be found at the Sri Ranganatha Temple in southern India. Standing in the temple's courtyard are 40 ornate statues that depict vimanas, vehicles that, according to Sanskrit texts, were navigated by the gods.
The word vimana in ancient Vedic texts means flying machines. In Hinduism, it is clearly established that the gods come down from the sky using vimanas. And in the temple of Sri Rangam, these carvings show many different types of vimanas. And what's really unique is that under these vimanas, we are able to see some very interesting patterns of mandala. According to legend, each type of vimana can be activated with a specific type of mandala. I believe that much of ancient technology was activated with specific types of frequencies. And if we crack this visual code, if we crack this cymatic pattern, we might actually unlock the secret to power these vimanas.
Winchester, England, April 24th, 2022. A mysterious geometric pattern emerges in a field of mustard plants. The perfectly symmetrical design is a phenomenon known as a crop circle.
Crop circles are basically features, designs
illustrations of high complexity in crops. They tend to be complicated designs of unknown origin.
Crop circles range from small discs to elaborate pictograms, hundreds of feet across. They have been found in various crops, including wheat, barley, oilseed rape, and corn.
In terms of the patterns themselves, they've been undergoing this amazing sort of ramp up in sophistication. You can find these huge, what they call pictographs, that span hundreds of feet across a whole field and feature multiple components, and they're arranged with mathematical precision.
Crop circles appear in more than 50 countries, and there literally have been thousands of them. Maybe over 10,000 crop circles that we're aware of in the modern era.
One of the first in 1966, it was Tully, Queensland, Australia. A farmer heard a buzzing sound and literally saw this big, round, maybe 30 feet diameter craft disc rising up out of what essentially was marshy, reedy ground. And it goes up and disappears. Something keeps laying things down in sequence as if it has a big picture of how it is communicating with this planet, but it is doing so in pieces. What in the world is making these patterns and why?
Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that the answer may be encoded within the crop circles themselves and might have critical implications for mankind. As evidence, they point to an elaborate formation that appeared in Rowton, England in 2008.
One formation had everyone baffled, and people were saying, well, what is this? Then a mathematician had a look at it and said, wait a minute, that's a representation of pi, and it's correct down to 10 decimal places.
It's a representation of pi in a geometric sense. It's kind of interesting because the way you get pi out of it is the lengths of the different arcs in each segment. And what happens is there's these little notches in the spiral that let you know you're at the end of an arc. So you actually have to measure the arc lengths as you go around, and their lengths give you the digits of pi. And there's a little circle to give you the decimal point. So it's a really interesting example of using geometry as a code for representing digits and numbers.
Many of the most famous crop circles actually derive from fractal patterns, which is a mathematical shape. The Mandelbrot set, the Julia set. To make these, you have to have knowledge of math. Mathematics is, of course, the universal language. Could crop circles, as some believe, be an attempt from an alien civilization to reach out and communicate with us?
Silves, Portugal, 1984. Farmers digging a well come across a mysterious object 15 feet beneath the earth. A 6-foot-long, carved limestone egg. Known as the Algarve egg, it has been dated to at least 3500 BC, and scientists conclude it could be even older. But what interests ancient astronaut theorists the most is a mysterious pattern etched on its surface.
When we look at the Algarve egg, it had a symbol on it that looked like intertwined serpents. Or they can also be interpreted as DNA strands. And the idea of the double helix wasn't invented or wasn't discovered by us human beings until well into the 20th century.
Is it possible that the design found on the Algarve egg shows the DNA double helix? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and suggest that this genetic symbol can be found throughout the ancient world.
The DNA spiral is shown on different antique rocks and steles. Just for example, look at the Sumerian steles. There you see so-called flying geniuses or winged geniuses. between these winged geniuses is something which archaeology calls the tree of life. But if you look at the tree of life, it's in reality a DNA spiral.
How is it possible that the double helix appears in ancient carvings and artwork when it wasn't discovered by modern scientists until 1953? Ancient astronaut theorists suggest clues have been hidden within our own cells. In 2013, Kazakhstani scientists Vladimir Sherbak and Maxim Makukov published a shocking proposal that there is an intelligent code that can be found in our own DNA.
They concluded that there was a certain amount of mathematical precision and what's known as a digital checking built into our DNA, like computer codes have. Checking codes to make sure that all the other codes are right.
Ever since the theory of evolution was introduced by Charles Darwin in 1859, scientists have searched for a so-called missing link that connects humans to our hominid ancestors. Ancient astronaut theorists suggest this evolutionary leap was made by extraterrestrial manipulation of our DNA.
We've always suggested that the ultimate proof for the ancient astronaut theory will not happen because we'll discover a buried spaceship somewhere or a ray gun in a tomb, but rather inside of our own DNA.
Believe it or not, I have colleagues of mine looking for secret messages in our DNA. And some of my friends take this to the nth degree and say, maybe aliens from outer space have left us a message. Maybe there's a message there, hidden by an advanced civilization, and that says, here we are, folks. We created you, and to prove it, we left a code for you in your DNA. Well, we can't rule it out.
The idea that extraterrestrials placed a hidden message in our DNA is not only sensational, but also entirely possible. And one thing is clear, whether they're standing stones, elaborate mandalas, or massive geoglyphs, perhaps by deciphering these alien codes, we will unlock the truth about our extraterrestrial past.